Roma aveva Cesare, Virgilio ed Augusto.
Benito Mussolini, who would later become one of the most feared leaders in Europe, was born on July 29, 1883, in Predappio, a small village in northern Italy. His father, Alessandro Mussolini, was a blacksmith and a passionate socialist who admired revolutionaries like Karl Marx. His mother, Rosa Maltoni, was a devout Catholic and a disciplined schoolteacher. Growing up, Mussolini lived in a household of conflicting influences: radical socialist ideas from his father and strict religious discipline from his mother. His father named him Benito after Benito Juarez, the Mexican leader who fought against foreign domination. From a young age, Mussolini was rebellious, aggressive, and often got into physical fights with other children. Despite his temper, he was intelligent, particularly skilled in writing and public speaking, traits that would shape his future. As a teenager, Mussolini was sent to a strict Catholic boarding school, but he was expelled for stabbing another student during a fight, a violent tendency that would remain with him for life. In his early adulthood, Mussolini became a journalist and a committed socialist, advocating for workers' rights and writing for various socialist newspapers. In 1909, he moved to Trento, then part of Austria-Hungary, to edit a socialist newspaper named L'Avvenir del Lavoratore, the future of the worker. His strong anti-government writings led to his arrest and expulsion from the region. By 1912, Mussolini had risen to become an important figure within the Italian Socialist Party, known for his fiery speeches and sharp writings advocating strikes and protests. Initially, Mussolini opposed Italy's involvement in World War I, aligning with the Socialist Party's stance of neutrality. However, he later shifted his views, believing that war could help Italy gain power and expand its territories, a position that betrayed socialist principles. This led to his expulsion from the Socialist Party in 1914, after which he became a nationalist, supporting Italy's entry into the war. Mussolini founded a new newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia, the People of Italy, promoting militarism, nationalism, and patriotism. In 1915, when Italy joined the war, Mussolini enlisted in the Italian army, serving on the front lines. In 1917, he was injured by a mortar explosion and was subsequently discharged. After the war ended in 1918, Italy was economically devastated, with high inflation, mass unemployment, and social unrest. The Italian government was weak, and political groups across the spectrum fought for control. Mussolini saw an opportunity in this chaos. In 1919, he founded the Fasci di Combattimento, a political movement combining nationalism, militarism, and authoritarianism, promising to restore Italy's former glory and crush the communist threat, which many blamed for the nation's problems. His supporters, known as the Black Shirts, used violence and intimidation to attack socialists, trade unionists, and political opponents. Initially, Mussolini's movement struggled, failing to win any seats in the 1919 elections. However, over the next few years, as Italy's crisis deepened, Mussolini's influence grew, gaining support from the middle class, industrialists, business owners, and the military, who feared a communist revolution. In 1921, Mussolini officially founded the National Fascist Party. By 1922, Italy was in political chaos, with widespread strikes, protests, and violent clashes in the streets. Seeing the opportunity, Mussolini planned a coup to seize power. On October 28, 1922, Mussolini and his Black Shirts began the March on Rome, demanding that King Victor Emmanuel III appoint Mussolini as prime minister. Though the king had the power to crush Mussolini's forces using the army, he hesitated, fearing civil war, and believed Mussolini could be controlled. On October 29, 1922, King Victor Emmanuel III gave in and appointed Mussolini as Prime Minister of Italy. After coming to power, Mussolini moved quickly to dismantle democracy and establish a dictatorship. By 1925, he had consolidated power completely and declared himself Il Duce, the leader. For nearly 2 decades, Mussolini ruled Italy with an iron fist, crushing political opposition, censoring and controlling the media, establishing a police state to silence critics, using the blackshirts to terrorize and eliminate any resistance. Mussolini embarked on grand construction projects, such as building highways and draining marshlands, promoting an image of a strong, modern Italy. However, many of these projects were expensive propaganda tools, and Italy's economy remained weak, struggling under the weight of Mussolini's authoritarian regime. During the 1930s, Mussolini began dreaming of building a new Roman Empire. In 1935, he ordered the invasion of Ethiopia, using chemical weapons and brutal tactics to suppress resistance. The League of Nations condemned the invasion but took no significant action to stop him, further emboldening Mussolini. In 1936, Mussolini formed a closer alliance with Adolf Hitler, as both leaders shared similar ideologies on dictatorship, expansionism, and crushing democracy. In 1939, Italy and Nazi Germany signed the Pact of Steel, a military alliance. When World War II broke out in 1939, Mussolini initially hesitated, but on June 10, 1940, he declared war on Britain and France, believing the war would be short and Italy could gain territories. However, Italy was militarily unprepared, and Mussolini's campaigns in Greece, North Africa, and the Soviet Union ended in failure and humiliation for Italy. By 1943, Italy was facing defeat in World War II, and the Italian people were exhausted by years of hardship under Mussolini's rule. On July 9, 1943, Allied forces invaded Sicily, marking the beginning of their push into Italian territory. The Italian military was weak and demoralized. On July 24, 1943, the Fascist Grand Council held a secret meeting and voted against Mussolini's leadership. The next day, July 25, 1943, Mussolini was summoned to the royal palace in Rome, where King Victor Emmanuel III informed him he was dismissed and placed under arrest as he left the palace. To prevent rescue attempts by loyal fascists, Mussolini was moved to various secure locations, eventually being imprisoned at Hotel Campo Imperatore in the Apennine Mountains. After Italy's government signed an armistice with the Allies on September 8, 1943, Hitler refused to let Mussolini fall. On September 12, 1943, German paratroopers launched Operation Oak, a daring mission in which they landed gliders near the mountain hotel, overpowered the guards, and rescued Mussolini without a single shot fired. Hitler installed Mussolini as the head of a puppet state in northern Italy called the Italian Social Republic, Republic of Salo. However, Mussolini was now powerless, with the real control in the hands of the German military, and he became a shadow of his former self. By April 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing, and the Allies, along with Italian partisan fighters, were liberating town after town in northern Italy. Mussolini's regime was falling apart and his supporters abandoned him. On April 25, 1945, Mussolini attempted to escape Milan, planning to flee to Switzerland with his mistress, Clara Petacci, who refused to leave his side. He disguised himself as a German soldier, wearing a Luftwaffe overcoat and helmet, and joined a German convoy retreating north, hoping to cross into Switzerland and avoid capture. On the morning of April 27, 1945, the convoy reached Dongo, a small town along the western shore of Lake Como. Italian partisans from the 52nd Garibaldi Brigade, led by Pierluigi Bellini dell'Estelle and Urbano Lazzaro, had set up roadblocks in the area to prevent fascists from escaping. The German soldiers surrendered quickly, and the partisans began searching the vehicles for high-ranking fascists. Mussolini, hiding inside a truck, tried to remain unnoticed, but Urbano Lazzaro spotted a short, pale-faced man in a German uniform who looked familiar. Mussolini was ordered out of the truck, removed his helmet and coat, and was immediately recognized. Unlike in the past, Mussolini did not resist and was taken prisoner by the partisans. Mussolini and Petacci were taken to a farmhouse in the village of Bonzanigo, kept under guard as the partisans debated their fate. While some argued Mussolini should be handed over to the Allies, most partisans believed he should face immediate execution for his crimes. On the morning of April 28, 1945, the National Liberation Committee in Milan ordered the execution. Walter Audicio, known by his codename Colonel Valerio, was chosen to carry out the order. Around 2 p.m., Audicio and his group took Mussolini and Petacci in a red Alfa Romeo to Giulino di Mezzegra, a quiet village nearby. At exactly 4:10 p.m., Audicio raised his French MAS-38 submachine gun and shot Mussolini in the chest. Petacci screamed and lunged toward Mussolini but was also shot multiple times. Other partisans joined in, firing bullets into Mussolini's lifeless body, ensuring he was dead. The partisans loaded the bodies of Mussolini, Petacci, and other executed fascist officials onto a truck and paraded them through various towns. By the morning of April 29, 1945, they arrived in Milan, where the bodies were dumped in Piazzale Loreto, a public square. The location was symbolic. Less than a year earlier, Mussolini's regime had executed 15 anti-fascist fighters in the same square, leaving their bodies on display to intimidate the population. Now, Mussolini's own body faced the same fate. Crowds gathered and people kicked, spat on, and cursed the corpses, some firing additional bullets into Mussolini's body. The hatred for Mussolini and fascism was so intense that the mob's violence knew no bounds. Later, the partisans hung the bodies of Mussolini, Petacci, and other fascists upside down from a metal girder at a nearby gas station, using meat hooks and ropes. This public display was meant as a final humiliation and a stark symbol of the end of fascism in Italy. Even Winston Churchill, who opposed Mussolini, would later say that while executing him was understandable, the public mutilation of the body was disturbing. After several hours, authorities ordered the bodies to be taken down. Mussolini's corpse was placed in a cheap wooden coffin and moved to a local morgue. Fearing that fascist supporters would create a shrine, authorities buried Mussolini in an unmarked grave outside Milan. In 1946, a group of hardline fascists managed to steal Mussolini's body, taking it across Italy in a failed attempt to give him a hero's burial. The authorities eventually recovered the body and hid it for 11 years. In 1957, Mussolini's family was finally allowed to bury his remains in his hometown of Predappio, where his tomb still exists today, attracting visitors, some who still admire him, and others who come purely out of historical curiosity. Enjoyed this detailed history? Like the video, comment which topic I should cover next, and subscribe for more stories like this.